Hello, and welcome to today's edition of Route 664, The Road to Human Kindness. I'm Les Winston, and I'm the national spokesperson for Endow America Network Foundation and also socialsecharity.org and endowamerica.com. We also are broadcasting regularly on Route 664 radio. Today, we love to talk to financial planners about the problems of getting income, having income in retirement. That's one of the things that we talk about all the time, endowment, a term that really is never used that much for people's own retirement, but it is an endowment of sorts. So my guest is Gregory Kurinec. Greg, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Les. How are you today?
I'm good, good. Given the climate that we're in with inflation being a problem, I was reading the personal section of the Wall Street Journal. Now, the new magic number that they're talking about for retirement is 1.46 million. Have you had a chance to look at that article?
I haven't, but there's similar articles that come out on, a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis on how that's a moving number. And, personally, I think it's false. I think it's not a good barometer. How much you have saved is not necessarily the best barometer for how much you need in retirement. To me, it's all about how much do you need? What do you need to live off of? What are your expenses in retirement? And then what are your other sources of income? If somebody is, worked for a company that's going to offer them a pension, their pension and their social security might be more than enough to cover what their retirement income expenses are. Now, that doesn't mean that they should go into retirement with zero saved, but they probably don't need to save that 1.4 million or 2 million or whatever the article of the week is saying.
Yeah.
So to have blanket statements like that, I just don't think it does the public justice. I think it puts a lot of fear in people's eyes.
Yeah, most people would look at that and say, how am I going to accumulate a $1.46 million dollars if that's what I need for retirement? Anyway, is retirement really the same today as it has been in the past?
Of course not. No, it's changing. Everything is changing for us these days, Les. So the generations before us, my parents and my grandparents, they all worked for companies that offered them pensions, and their pensions were great. On the contrary to that, when I even first got into business, I was only planning for 10, 15-year retirements, but now we are all living a lot longer as well. So now I'm planning for 20, 30-year retirements because of that. It's not uncommon to see people live into their 90s these days. It's very common. It's becoming almost the norm versus when I was growing up. If somebody died in their 70s, it was like, wow, they were old. Now, if somebody dies in their 70s,
We
it's like,
don't we don't
holy
talk about
cow, look how
70s
young
being
they
old. Yeah, we don't talk
Right.
about 70s being old anymore. No,
Not at
now if I
all.
tell a joke about old people, it's I realize it's me. So it's like yeah. So the thing about it, Greg, is when you see publicity like that, when you see public relations are putting out information like that, and the fact that most people really are kind of financially illiterate for a good part of it. I know that that's an important aspect of what you're all about too. You believe in financial literacy. So
Absolutely.
how do you do that? How do you get people to be financially literate?
You know, um, First you got to get them to listen and understand, just like anything, and what any type of topic that we want to talk about, it's just trying to get people to educate. So I do a lot of public workshops and classes and things like that, just to help spread the financial literacy. So I get invited to libraries and park districts and different places of worship, or companies might sponsor me to come in and we'll come talk about different topics of financial literacy, whether it be estate planning or social security or healthcare, something to help educate the community without it being in a salesy or a product pushing, environment. It's all purely about the education.
Yeah, so we're also we're starting to educate. We're educating endowment engineers, and that's one of the things that we think is really important going forward. It's like we know there are about 300,000 CPAs in the country, and those are the people that help you pay your taxes. And we want to create endowment engineers who help you avoid your taxes so you can keep more of the money for yourself and create more income for yourself. And it's all about using charity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been exposing your folks to that at all? Have you been talking about the use of any of these very powerful tools in the tax code, the charitable tax tools?
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially for some of my wealthier clients, when we're doing our tax planning, the person has to be charitably inclined. You can't force somebody to be charitably inclined, even if they're getting a tax break by doing this. But some of the uses that we can do, whether it's qualified charitable distributions for IRAs for people over the age of 70, whether it's through the use of a donor advised fund, whatever it is, using those tools to help plan for their future now, and being able to do some social good in the future as well by contributing to these charitable organizations. So just taking a step back, we're good at writing checks every now and then when it feels good, but just like anything else when it comes to retirement, it should be part of your plan. If it's something that you're going to continue to do and you do regularly on a regular basis, well, let's
Mhm.
make it part of a plan and see what's the most efficient way to do it for you and your family.
Yeah, and so if you can do it and also get income, that's the part that most of the financial industry is kind of left out of the picture. They know about donor advised funds where you're making a gift and you get a tax deduction. But you don't know that you can also get income back if you use a pooled income fund. Most people
Sure.
don't know those even exist. So one of the things that we're very keen on is having the language available to the advisors so that the advisors can share that with their clients, in the sense that there are things that we do that we want to let advisors know about because they're so valuable. And so indirectly, we're doing that with you today by having this interview. But I do want to go back to this question. Living in we talk about financial hazards. We've explained that financial hazards are important issues, and one of them is living too long, which is the one that you're kind of focused on pretty much.
Mhm.
So, should you be able to plan so that you never run out of money?
You should be able to, but is everybody successful with it? Not necessarily. Nobody
No.
has a crystal ball, right, Les? We don't know how long we're going to be around, but we have a good idea. We know our own health history, we know our own family health history and things like that. So we need to be able to think about those things when it comes to planning for retirement. Now that doesn't mean the proverbial bus isn't going to hit us tomorrow, all right, but we should have enough information to plan to be around a long time, because as we get older, we're seeing advances in medical technology, pharmaceutical drugs. We're all achieving a longer style, a longer livelihood because of all these advances to technology and things like that, and it's something we should embrace.
Yeah.
When I'm working with clients, it's usually the gentleman in the family that says, "Oh, if I live past 72 or 73, just take me out back or push me off the short pier or something like that." Well, guess what?
Yeah.
That's not happening anymore, guys.
Yeah,
That's
well,
not
the
what
thing is, I
happens.
think I think people die when they run out of money. I do think that that's there's some psychological issues there, where people, if they don't run out of family and friends and they don't have a purpose in life and they're running out of money, it's almost like they will themselves. Unfortunately, Greg, where are you located?
I'm in the south suburbs of Chicago, so I'm down in the
I thought that
Downers Grove
accent
area.
was a Chicago accent. Yeah, the South Side.
We've got best-selling authors. You are going to start to uncover all the layers that are covering your genius. And some of the world's top leadership experts.
We have structured a mastermind program that is very unusual and it is very powerful.
Robin Sharma at noon. Your creativity will soar, your productivity will be epic, your impact will be legendary, you will be the best in the business, and you will not only achieve remarkable things, but you're going to feel sunsets. You'll feel a connection to people. You'll feel for what's going on in the world, and that will make you a world changer in your own unique way. Robin Sharma at noon at 4 p.m.
It's a
Blaine Bartlett.
exploration of what it takes to be a highly effective leader in today's fast-changing environment.
Best-selling author, executive and leadership coach.
And if you've been liking what you've been listening to on the Soul of Business podcasts, how does one become a leader that can keep connection to the soul of business?
Blaine Bartlett at 4 p.m.
Look forward to seeing you there.
At Route664.org. This is Route 664 Radio.
My guest is Greg Kurinec, and Greg is a financial advisor in outside of Chicago, south side of Chicago. Focuses primarily on helping people with their financial literacy with regard to retirement and so on. So I find that in many cases, business people, even people that they own their own business, you, their tax knowledge is very limited. Do you find the same thing?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've experienced it with myself being a business owner. I focus on retirement. I know how to do retirement very well. But when you become a business owner and there's all these other areas that you need to prioritize as well. So, as a business owner, we know how to stamp out widgets, provide XYZ service, and that's what we know how to do very well. We might not be very knowledgeable on how to, you know, make sure our business is set up properly for tax purposes, make sure that we have the right liability and things like that. And that's where you really have to engage in with other professionals because you don't know what you don't know. And it's
Yeah.
okay to ask for help. That's why we have all these other professionals, whether it's CPAs or attorneys or whatever the case may be. We need to seek out the help to make sure that we aren't doing ourselves a disservice down the road.
Well, obviously, we need to be educated consumers. I think that the ability of a businessman to try and limit his taxes is important, and they can do that in a lot of different ways. Obviously, using retirement plans and so on. What is in this world where we've got so much going on about these universities and higher education? Are you finding that more young people are turning to not, I would say blue collar, but more like the technological, non-college type of industry?
I think we're starting to see that shift a little bit. I don't know if it's there, the old cadage, the American dream, that everybody needs to go to college, I think is a thing of the past. We're realizing that now because we see people that have good ideas, are able to express those ideas and manifest those ideas now how to without a college degree. And you don't have to have a college degree to have, a great idea. But because of the expense of college altogether, I see a lot of parents saying, "Hey, I just can't afford to send my kid to college and pay for it all. If that's what they want to do, I'm going to do the best that I can." But they have to have some skin in the game too. And I say this to my clients that are approaching retirement. You can always take a loan out for college education. You can't take a loan out for retirement. So, so
Okay.
something to keep in mind when you're
That's a
going
very
from pay.
interesting. That's a true statement.
It
Well, you
is.
can borrow your way into a retirement. Unfortunately, you have to pay it back sometime, and that's when it's a problem, especially if you got credit card debt, which most of the
Exactly.
country is in today. Um, so is retirement? Is it possible to be a wage earner? Let's say you're earning whatever number, $150,000 a year. You're age 65 and you want to retire at age 65 in one day, and you've been living on income of 150,000. Let's say you've been paying taxes, so you've been living on, let's say, 120,000 a year, right? And now you want to live the same lifestyle, right? The day after you retire as you do the day before you retire. So you have to be
I
prepared.
see people expanding their lifestyle, especially in the early years of retirement, because for the last 30 or 40 years, you've been working your butt off. Now you get to do all the things that you've wanted to do for the last 30 or 40 years. So I see people spending more money in those early years of retirement.
Where do they get the assets from to do that?
Well, they have to be diligent in their savings. We mentioned at the very beginning how much somebody has to have saved isn't the right number, okay, to determine. It's all about what your lifestyle is like. So if you're somebody that has a pension and will get Social Security and we were dual income, that might be enough to support your lifestyle. If you need excess, well, then we have to look at how did you save in retirement plans? Did you have a good diversification of retirement plans? When we talk about diversification, people usually think stocks and bonds, cash, things like that. But what about diversification of retirement plans and tax accounts, whether it's pre tax, after tax, and then tax free? Having a good mixture of the three different retirement accounts. So, where is your savings at? How is it located? And that'll determine, how long your money will last, how much debt you will give to the government and how much you get to keep for yourself.
So when do you start planning? I mean, it depends on where you are in the game, right? In the game of life, let's say, as to where you're interjecting, whether you intersect with somebody, or where you start to think about this problem. What spurs somebody to start thinking about this?
Do you want the honest opinion, or do you want the
Oh, well,
financial
yeah, I do.
advisor
I
where
want
they
your honest
should?
opinion. Yeah, don't give me a dishonest opinion. Yeah.
Usually people really start to buckle down for retirement when they start to see how their parents are aging and where they are financially. That's kind of a trigger.
What is that? Give me an age bracket,
You know,
hypothetically.
50 to 60 is when they usually do.
Isn't that too
That's when I
late?
see is it too late? No. I've seen a lot of people make up a whole retirement in, a 10 or a 12-year span. Then they have to be very, very diligent. They're giving up a lot of the things that they enjoyed previously to focus on retirement. But, I'd love for them to start as soon as they enter the workforce. You don't miss those couple of bucks early on in your career, and it compounds for, so much longer, and you get so much more growth out of it.
I have a question for you. When they start working, they're getting Social Security payments in, right? They're actually funding their retirement with half of it, and their employers is funding it with another half. They're going full bore into Social Security. They may be
Yeah.
putting in almost 13 or 14,000 a year between them combined,
Yeah, but
maybe
when
more.
Social Security was first signed into law, it was only supposed to be part of a three-legged stool for retirement. We had our pensions and we had our personal savings and we had this new program of Social Security, and that came around in 1935. Now I see Social Security making up 40, 50, 60% of people's retirement income because they haven't saved enough for retirement. They didn't put enough in 401ks and IRAs. We already talked about how pensions are kind of a thing of the past for a lot of people. So they took that aspect away. Now the savings and the onus is on the employee. Where are we putting that money? Well, we're putting that money into our kids and our families, into college educations and things like that. So our own personal savings has fallen off. Well, now we need to really buckle down once the kids get out of school and we have a couple of extra dollars. Now it's buckle down and sock away as much money as you can.
Well, wasn't most of didn't real estate, their personal home, usually represent a big part of the asset wealth of the family? I mean, if you go back into go back 25, 30 years ago, before you had the 2008 crash, I mean, people were relying on the fact that they were accumulating an asset in their residence. And while the residence was necessary to raise their children, they needed a bigger residence and so on. Then you have people downsizing. I mean, that basically was a big chunk of the retirement routine, or routine retirement for older people.
Yeah.
How's that
Yeah.
changed today?
Well, the real estate values have gotten out of control where the downsizing of the house, you might downsize in size of the house, but you're not going to necessarily downsize in your payments for the house. Okay. Most people don't have their houses paid off yet because they've either refinanced while interest rates were dropping, or they've moved several times while they were working. So the adage of staying in the same house for 30 years until it's paid off has kind of gone away too. So to have this equity, you're right, our real estate is one of our largest assets for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very difficult to go from the 3,000 square foot house to the 1,800 square foot townhouse. Now I'm going to have an HOA, and I don't know where you guys are in the country, but in Illinois, in Cook County specifically, our property taxes are through the roof. So our
Well,
property taxes.
this is Florida, and we're suffering with price rises because of demand, which is one of the big issues. But
And
and we're
insurance.
also, and interest rates are so high right now, so it's really hard to even to purchase a home. I mean, I have a lot of concern about the younger generation, and I think what's happened is they've kind of mellowed into that. The Gen Zers, they're not so consumptive, I would say. They don't do a lot of consumption. They're more frugal, and they also have kind of blended a retirement atmosphere, right, and from the very beginning. And I think that's an advantage. I think I'm not sure that may not be a thing going forward, but it's also, you have less people getting married. You have less people having kids. I mean, it's a very different world. But let me stress that things have changed so drastically over the last 30 years, for
Right.
example.
Right. You know, it's you look at like my grandparents, they had 4 kids, but they were a small family on the block. The rest of the families had 6 or 7 kids. Then my parents, they only had 3 kids. So we've been seeing that decline over the
Well, that was a
demographics.
retirement plan also.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they would have, if you had 6 kids, you would hope that one of them was going to be wealthy enough to be able to have a place for you to live.
Right.
And that was actually beneficial to everybody because you got the intergenerational play between grandparents and grandchildren, which I think was invaluable. I don't think you see
Mhm.
that as much today. You've got the silo for the grandparents, and they're never in touch with the parents, and the parents are never in touch with the kids. Like it's just we've become isolated in a sense. Yeah, and I think the work that you're doing is really important from the standpoint of educating people about all of this. And
Mhm.
I hope that the way that it's taken in it gets more absorbed, so we can at least have a better economic generation. And we're leaving the political world, and we're in the economic world right now. And so it's very important for everybody to be economically sound and to understand that their responsibility to themselves, their financial responsibility is dealt with by themselves. They're not going to get anything from anybody else. It just doesn't work that way. We see what's happening with things that are promised to us now. So
Mhm.
that's not the way of the future. The way of the future is to be independent. So how do you make somebody independent? What are the 3 things that you would recommend to somebody who's aged, let's say, 35, and they're earning $100,000 a year, and they want to accumulate money for retirement, and they want to find a way to do that? What would you say to them?
First, number one is educate yourself, whether it's just reading articles on a regular basis, whether it's the Wall Street Journal or Barron's or anything on there. But we all know we can't believe everything we read on the internet. So make sure you're going to reliable sources and educating yourself. Number two is explore everything that your employer has to offer for you, whether you think you're going to need it now or not. Make sure you know that your benefits package inside now because you never know what's going to change. And then
Suppose
take
they're
advantage.
self-employed, though. Let's assume they're self-employed, not
Oh,
employed by anybody.
well, then you need to do even more education for yourself because it's
Yeah,
all on your shoulders. So if you
that's
have
right.
other employees, you need to be able to speak knowledgeable about what you're going to offer to your other employees as well. So you really, really have to dive into education then.
Okay, and once they do that, then what?
And you have to execute. We are very procrastination and intense society. So start to implement some of these things that you're learning about. And let me say this: a wrong decision is better than no decision at all. We can always correct things. We can always go back. There isn't always going to be a perfect solution for everything. So I'd rather be 60% right and 40% wrong than not do anything, which makes me 100% wrong.
Amen.
Yeah. So you can do, even though you may not be able to do everything you want to do, you can do something. And you
Right. So
and you have to know what to do, what's the best thing to do with what you have. Yeah.
start to take little
What
bites.
kind of an advice what type of team of advisors do you think people should have?
You should have, we all have our accountants or our tax preparers that we talk to. But when we're talking to our accountants, usually it's one time a year, we're handing them our paperwork and we just kind of get our paperwork back and keep our fingers crossed that we get a big refund. But what you really should do is be proactive in your tax planning. We kind of talked about that at the beginning. Your tax time should not be a surprise to you. You should know exactly what you're walking into each year. So if that's working with a CPA that helps you with that, if that's working with a financial advisor that helps you with, making sure they're working together to give you the right plan. And then you should probably have an attorney to help you, with your estate planning documents and things like that. So
I'd like to add one more advisor to that. That's an endowment engineer.
there
The
you go.
endowment engineer, the endowment engineer is somebody who can help you when you have a situation where you're going to have a tax and you're going to have to pay capital gains tax, or you're going to have to pay ordinary income tax, and it's more than you want to pay, or there's an estate tax issue. All 3 of those things, capital gains, estates, and ordinary income, can be affected by charitable planning. And that way you can reduce the amount of tax that you pay, which is a very large part of everybody's costs, and you
Yeah.
can also increase the amount of income that you have. So you can solve two problems at once. You can save money and create more income with it later on. My guest is these our purpose in interviewing Gregory and talking to you and talking to advisors like this is to help educate the public. This is what this is all about. It's how we educate the public, how we get people to understand what it is that they can and can't do, or what they should be thinking about doing, and who to see and who to talk to about it. Because those are the ways that we can get educated and implemented, and that's usually the fastest way. You can learn about it all you want. I know people who they don't want to do anything until they know everything, and it's perfection is the
Enemy of
perfection
good.
is the roadblock to accomplishment, and that's a problem. So you don't have to be perfect. You just have to start to do it in a way that makes sense. It depends on where you are in the game, and you need help, and people are out there to help you, and we want to train more. So we'd love to make you an endowment engineer. We have a 12 part curriculum, which we do in 30-minute segments, and it'll be online. And we invite you to become an endowment engineer. There's a test at the end to make sure that you know what you're doing. And that way you have the ability now to start using some of those tools that go along with the work that you're doing in other cases and educate people about that as well. It's really
That's
important
fantastic.
because the government can't afford to do everything the government's doing, and they're not going to do it in the future. And we need to do that collectively as individuals in our own communities. So that's the idea behind this whole Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness. We hope people like you will give guidelines and guideposts to people to make their lives better overall. And we appreciate your time this morning, Greg, and wish you a lot of luck and success in what you're doing. And let's stay in touch.
Thank you for
And
having
we
me.
will be, as I say, we'll be replaying this. We have access to the radio station that Wanda runs, and we play these interviews there. And also, you can see it on YouTube. It'll be on our YouTube, social media, and so on. So look forward to sharing with you.
Yeah. As soon as it goes live, just give me the links, and I'll share them all over my social media and with my clients and that as well. My website is under construction. It's pennantplanning.com. Pennantplanning.com.
Pennant, as in winning the pennant.
That's it.
Okay. Is that you? I don't think the White Sox are going to do that.
The Cubs. I'm a Cubs fan, Les.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
I might be from the South Side, but I'm a North Side baseball fan.
Okay, Greg. Great talking with you.
Great talking with you. Thank you so much for having me.